All right. Did we already talk about questions being welcome?
I
Well,
will
we're
say that right now. So,
okay.
so with this presentation, I'm going to be a little more active. So I will be watching chat the whole time. If you have questions that come up while Alicia and Courtney are talking, please feel free. As you know, we did a run through this past week, and anybody who is research oriented understands that it is very much like a dopamine chase. One thing leads to some other thing, you get excited about it, you veer off in another direction. So again, especially with this presentation, that is encouraged. Please feel free to post any questions. We're willing to go down different rabbit holes, and I'm very excited to share this with all of you.
Yes, thank you so much, Vanessa.
Of
All
course.
right, can everyone see the screen just before I even
Yes.
start? Okay,
Yes.
great.
People are already commenting about the ghosts, so we're very
Awesome.
good.
Yay. Okay, so thank you everyone for joining us. This is How Well Do You Know Your Ghosts? I am Alicia. A lot of people in this community know me as Allie. I am just a weirdo all around. I love talking about paranormal, and I am a historian and working on my master's in library science with a focus in archives.
I am so excited for you, Alicia, like in that program, by the way. I am Courtney Block. You might know me as the Liminal Librarian, and I am so excited to be here today presenting with my friend Alicia, presenting to all of you. I am the User Engagement Librarian at Indiana University Southeast. I'm also the author of a couple of books, Researching the Paranormal and the Encyclopedia of Parapsychology. And I'm sorry if I'm a little echoey because I'm in the Durham County Public Library study room because I'm in Durham, North Carolina, and they got hit by the fallout from Hurricane Ian and my hotel lost power. So just another testimonial to how amazing libraries are.
Seriously, right? Just
This is a pro library stream, so
this is very pro library.
In case you see people like walking by and you're like, where the hell is she?
Oh my goodness. I'm so glad that you're safe and everything is okay though. So
yes, thank you.
yeah. All right. So Courtney, I think this is yours.
Yes. Okay. So you might be wondering, what are we talking about today? So today we are going to be talking about the nuances of researching paranormal topics. And it doesn't have to just be in an instance of if you're like investigating something, although it certainly can be, like if you're going to do an investigation of a haunted location or somebody reaches out to you. It can also be the tools and resources we're going to show you can also be used just if you want to find really cool, really weird information and just have fun. So we're going to be talking about a bunch of freely accessible resources and some tips and tricks. And we're also going to ensconce it in a real world example before we then demonstrate a couple of these databases to you so you actually see them and interact with them for a little bit. And Alicia is going to explain why we're doing this.
So why do we want to share these things with you? Many of us know in the paranormal world, in the community, you might have a case that you're investigating. You might be looking into somewhere that you want to investigate, or even your home, your experiences of your own life. Okay. So in order to do that, you need resources. So knowing these resources are going to help you with so many projects, investigations, even beyond the paranormal world. This is some knowledge that is really good for just researching things that you want to know more about in general. Reading about things is fun, especially if it's something that you are very interested in. These things that we're going to talk about, these resources are going to point you to primary sources. And that way you're not going to be going off of hearsay, although like folklore and stories are so wonderful in communities, and they kind of give you a basis of where to start with your research. You want to go past that. You want to keep going and know what you're talking about and get some more information behind those stories.
I really love how you put that, Alicia.
Thank you.
Yeah,
So-
it's not about poo-pooing, like urban legends and folklore and
Yeah.
stuff like that. It's just, if you want to, like you said, if you want to take it a step further and dig into like, okay, I'm hearing these stories that are part of this community, let's dig into it.
Yeah, yeah. Like I think folklore is such an important part of community and especially with culture and everything, but if you're going to take that into an investigation, you really need to make sure that you're looking at what is going on in like the backstory of it too.
For sure. A lot of the ways that you can use the resources that we're going to talk about to help like ferret out the real story behind some of these things that you encounter is by finding primary sources. This is one example of a primary source. It is a newspaper article from the New York Times, August 28, 1892. About the first week of Lizzie Borden's trial for murder. I found this using the historic New York Times. So this is just one example. Primary sources in general, they are firsthand accounts that are written as something is like immediately happening. It could be a newspaper article like this. It could be a diary, a letter, an interview. It could also be photographs, audios, videos, and, to get real nitty gritty, also could be like text of law or original research. Alicia, do you want to add anything else to this?
I feel like you summed that up really, really well. So, you're good. Okay. So our goal today, I said tonight, it's today. I'm a night owl, so it's always tonight. Is to present a real case to show you with real investigative tools and how they are used. So, are you ready, Courtney?
I'm ready.
3, 2, 1, let's go.
go.
We are nerds. Just so
We
you
were so excited. We were so excited for that part, you guys.
We
Like,
were. Oh my goodness.
That was all Alicia's doing, by the way, and also like designing this whole like presentation. That's all Alicia. So
Oh, thank you. Oh my gosh. Oh my goodness. All right. So what might happen when you research the paranormal? We listed some things we're going to talk about before we get into talking about resources. So first off, be prepared. You might not get any clear-cut answers, and that is okay from the get-go. There's, your first search of information may not give you anything like substantial at first, but you will get there, I promise.
yeah, it's kind of like, I think Vanessa mentioned this at the beginning, research can take you down a rabbit hole.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, another thing that might happen, especially if you're digging into paranormal cases, is you might discover completely, natural explanations for the origins of something. And I think we all sort of understand that.
Another thing, especially with older cases that you're investigating, be prepared to encounter some language that is offensive, unsavory, not politically correct in any way. For example, if your research includes information about hate groups, you will read it. It's not going to be pleasant, but you don't have to say those words out loud. You don't have to use them. You just may encounter them.
Yeah, I think, Alicia, your point here on that is really great. It's like it's all about how do we ethically and responsibly use these resources going forward.
Yes,
definitely.
definitely.
And a good example of that is like when I'm digging into really old, like from the 1800s, ghost stories or cases from the newspapers I have on Instagram and I share them with you. I do not read them entirely verbatim because there's no point. So yeah, it's all about how to use it ethically, responsibly. But yes, another thing that can happen is you can hit a wall. And sometimes sometimes that just happens. It's part of the research process. It happens to people like me and Alicia who have been doing this for a long time. Some pieces of the puzzle take more time. That's normal. Don't get like worried when that happens. The strategies that we're sharing are just going to help you as much as possible. And by the way, these are also databases and strategies that you can use for any topic. It doesn't have to just be paranormal.
Exactly. I want to add to that real quick. Remember that you're human and that you might not have all of, the knowledge yet of what you're researching, and that's okay. And sometimes that wall, you hit it and then you'll come back later with something new. So that moves us into like, research is a cyclical process. So it starts over with every new piece of the puzzle. There's no one size fits all to research. So you're going to research things and keep different parts in and just hold on to them. And you're going to know maybe something is going to hit later and you're going to come back to that. But it's definitely also a rabbit hole that you will fall down sometimes and get lots of information. So just remember that part. I wanted to check, Vanessa, are there any questions yet that anyone has?
Not yet.
Okay,
No,
cool.
people are just excited.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. If I were researching the paranormal, what would I consult? So you can consult your online databases, library resources, and you can also use your own investigative style. And we are about to start talking more about these things.
Yeah, so it's all about diversifying your toolkit. So we just really want you to know that it's all about sort of combining all of these different tools and resources and strategies, such as online databases that we're going to be showing you and talking to you about, library resources that could be digital or in person. There are tons of amazing library databases that are freely and openly accessible if you just have a library card. A lot of them you can access remotely. And then there's also, of course, archives and physical collections of libraries, which the reason that I'm in Durham, by the way, is because I have been digging into the parapsychology archives on the Duke University campus, and the things that I am finding are just like blowing my mind.
If you are not following Courtney on Twitter, she's sharing all these things and it is so fascinating right now, I swear.
Yeah, and it's just to just sort of briefly sort of talk about that. There's so much value in being able to put your hands on like the journals of Dr. Louisa Rhine, like journals that like her personal journals, and like the Zener cards that they would use in studies about ESP, like physically holding those and seeing those is just, I don't know, it's something. And like,
That's really amazing.
yeah, and there's so I am in no way like poo-pooing, the benefits of digital resources and the way that technology has really enriched our lives. But I really encourage anybody to go to an archives if you never have, and to also write down your stories and your thoughts and your experiences, because maybe one day somebody 120 years from now will find your journal and just be absolutely gutted and grateful at reading like what a beautiful human you were. So I could just go on and on about that.
I feel you so much right now.
Okay. So let's see, let me come back down. Let's see, your own investigative style. Okay. This is an important one that we wanted to include, because even though we're talking about, all these databases and tools that you can use to find primary sources, we also understand that you're probably not engaging with an investigation or looking into this stuff with like the end goal of submitting something to a scholarly journal or something. You're doing this because like you're super into it, you really love the topic. So when you are researching, I think that it is important and empowering to embed the knowledge gained from your own investigative style. And what I mean by that is if you are somebody who likes to use tarot or oracle or pendulums or whatever, trance mediumship in your investigations, consider yourself a credible resource as well.
Definitely. I love that. I love that. All right. Courtney, this is your time to shine.
I love that. Okay, so these are a few of my favorite free online databases. These are some of the ones that we're going to demonstrate and also show you how we applied them to an actual like research inquiry. The first one is Chronicling America, which is historic American newspapers from the Library of Congress. By the way, these are all totally and completely free. You don't have to sign up, you don't have to create an account, you don't have to pay for anything, you don't gotta do nothing. So Chronicling America is really cool because it provides newspapers from 1777 to 1963. You guys, it's so amazing. Google Scholar is another great one. I think sometimes Google kind of gets a bad rap in terms of like talking about research, but Google Scholar is amazing at helping you find scholarly journals if you're curious about a topic. That's kind of what JSTOR will help you do as well. It'll help you find scholarly articles. HathiTrust is another amazing one. By the way, I use HathiTrust so much in the creation of the 2 books that I wrote. It is a digital archive that has tons of just like books, journals. This is where you can find actually the really old historic editions of the journals of the Society for Psychical Research, both the British and the American ones. IONS is the Institute of Noetic Sciences. If you guys are familiar with Dr. Dean Radin, this is what he's the chief like research scientist, I think there. And you can go and they have certain publications available. They even have links to like studies that they're doing if you want to like take part in stuff. Edge Science is the popular magazine side of this other publication in the bottom right, the Journal of Scientific Exploration. Both of which are free and open access. It's just like Edge Science kind of writes in a more like layperson friendly way than the Journal of Scientific Exploration. But they both talk about like ESP, psychokinesis, like all these really cool things. And also the Directory of Open Access Journals and the Library of Congress in general. Whew, okay, Alicia.
Just before I start this part, was there any questions in between any of that?
No, people are just frantically writing down all of the sources.
That's all right. Well,
much like I did on the run through on Wednesday.
This presentation will be up forever. As librarians, we want to share. We do not want to gatekeep. So if you miss out on writing something today, you'll be able to go back. So do not worry. All right. So there's even more as far as resources. I am currently an intern at my local archives, and I wanted to talk about some of the resources that we use the most in our research, and as a historian, what I've used in the past when researching things. So one thing that I really love is digital libraries. Most states have a digital library. I live in Georgia, so we have Georgia Digital Library. They have so many collections that have been digitized that are so priceless in research. There's going to be photos of different areas throughout history, like even the county that you live in. There may be some photos that they have there archived that you can access online for free. There's city directories, newspapers. If like what Courtney said, Chronicling America has newspapers. If there may not be the newspaper you're looking for there, your state digital library may have it because it might be a county paper or something and not a national paper. So you may be able to find it in the digital library. Your next resources, libraries, as we can attest today, they're a great resource. So if you need to access something that has a paywall, so something like ancestry.com has a paywall, a lot of times you can access it through your local library. Get a library card. You can use it for so many things. They usually have some sort of online database resource that you can access online from home, like Galileo is here in Georgia. I know ProQuest you can get in other places. So use your library. They need you and you need them. So your local archives, you will have access to directories, census records, yearbooks, maps, etc. of your area or the area that you're trying to research. So if you are not directly in the area that you are researching, call or email the archives there or the archivist. Let them know what you're looking for. Ask them what that you can do to research these things. Do not ask them to do all the research for you, but ask them to maybe see what resources they have that maybe you can come in, or if you guys can talk about it. Okay. One note real quick on census records. I just wanted to give everyone this information. They're only put out every 72 years. So in April of this year, we just got the 1950s census records. So that's about, the brunt of where you're going to get information from census records is 1950s and before, but it gives you a lot of information where people lived, who was living in the house, what they did as a job, etc. So if somewhere does not have an archives, local historical associations a lot of times also serve as those archives. Research into the historical association. Sometimes they may have a fee to join, sometimes they may not. But the same thing as archives, contact them, ask them questions, what they might have on file that you can come research or come see that they have. And lastly, museums. Some museums may have reading rooms that have books or old documents that they keep on file there, and they'll let you make an appointment to come see them, similar to archives as well. And then a lot of times they have historians on staff to speak with. So if you have something that you're really interested in, see if there's anyone that has that knowledge that works there, and you can talk to them and get some more background on whatever you're researching. So, okay, I'm done with that. There's a lot of information here.
It's all good though. Like everyone is very excited.
Yay! So excited for them. Okay, so thank you, Alicia, for this page. I also just want to say, because we're sort of talking about this, we acknowledge that it's a very vulnerable thing to go up and ask somebody for help with something. Library anxiety is actually a thing that like researchers study. And so I want to reinforce to you as a librarian, and I know Alicia knows this as well, we do not judge. We love the weird questions, like the weirder the better. And honestly, it's kind of like Alicia was saying in our run through the other day, like if you give us a question, it's like a game. This is what we live for. We love it. So there is absolute, don't feel like you're going to be judged, or don't feel ashamed for having these like weird interests.
There's no judgment from the library standpoint. Also, on the same note, if you have severe library anxiety still, see if your library has a virtual reference chat. A lot of times you don't have to put your name in. You can remain anonymous. You can ask the question. They may get back to you quickly with some sort of resource to begin your search, or they may email you back. The same with if you don't want to talk on the phone or go in, you can email the archives or the Historical Association and just start your questioning there. But give them time to answer you back also, because they are humans. But at least you can start somewhere if you have a lot of anxiety, such as I.
And emailing and using the chat is also a great way to access resources if you are if you cannot physically go visit a library, like if you're on the other side of the country, you can just email and just be like, hey, I'm doing some research into this. I came across something on your library website. Is there anything you can scan and send me or tell me about? And just see what happens. I used to do that all the time.
Yes, exactly.
I love it. And we actually have our first question from Jen. So do you have recommendations for researching archives from other countries that is free?
I would contact the archivist there. If you can get the information of where they're located, start contacting them. Sorry, Courtney, go ahead.
No, that's okay. HathiTrust is going to be international in scope. And then there is, I would also check the, like the online, just like there's like state digital libraries here.
Yes.
Check out the websites over there. Some more of the databases that we're going to show you. Like I know the Directory of Open Access Journals is also international in scope. And if anything comes up as we're thinking about that, we'll let you know.
Great.
Yeah, that's a good question though, because you're probably going to eventually have research overseas if you're looking into something like genealogy. So use those online resources and try to make contact with somebody.
Well, and another thing too is it's sort of contextual. We would almost need to know more about what it is that you're looking into, because chronicling American newspapers can be really helpful, because even though it says American newspapers, if it was like an event or something, or prominent enough people that you are investigating, they are going to be reported about in the American newspapers.
That's
so
true.
You can still use something like chronicling American newspapers. So just a caveat, to just help you get into like the way of thinking about research.
That is so true.
Fantastic. And just a quick shout out to Kai, who is dropping links for all the different resources in the chat right now. So you have a lot of excited scholars in this chat.
Yeah.
That makes us so happy.
I know, I'm so happy. Just like, we just want to spread awareness. And, I always joke too that if it convinces one of you to maybe investigate librarianship as a career, then this is just my long con. That's all this is.
Courtney, that's so funny.
I'm trying to turn you all into librarians.
Everybody that I run into that ever is like, oh, I thought about being a librarian. I'm like, you still can. Let's go. What are you interested in? So,
Oh my God. Okay.
Sorry. Okay, we'll get back on track.
This is perfect. Don't apologize.
So the case that we are going to sort of exemplify and show you how we applied some of these databases before, like I said, we're going to put them on screen and show them to you, is the Seaford poltergeist case. Alicia, do you want to?
Sure. So what is this case? In 1958, a family in Seaford, New York, experienced multiple unexplained disturbances. Did you want me to keep going through this one?
I was just chatting.
Okay. I'm down for whatever.
I was encouraging people to be librarians.
Yes.
So what happened in the Seaford, Long Island poltergeist case? For weeks, bottles within the family's home were exploding, losing tops and spilling their contents without cause, along with furniture and household objects moving. Like in one case, there were these little ceramic figurines that would fly off of tabletops and crash into the walls, just all sorts of crazy things.
Lovely. So the who, what, where of this, the parapsychologist investigating these incidences attributed the cause to the family's young son, who was 12 years old at the time, and possible psychokinesis. So some of these episodes were so violent that the family stayed with friends for a total of 6 nights. So they couldn't even hang out in their home. Like they were so scared.
So scary.
So scared.
Okay. So, why is this case important? Remember, every case is important. Every research inquiry that you have is important. But this one just garnered lots of attention. And as such, there's a lot of resources to access it. And yeah, Alicia, did you want to take the second part of this?
So this case specifically ended up inspiring the filmmakers to create the infamous series Poltergeist, which, as we know, skewed information to create a story for the masses that would be interesting and scary. And this is where research is our best friend. So just as a side note, we did not even know that this case specifically inspired the Poltergeist film series until we were already researching it. We were just like, oh, this is a really interesting case. Let's research this one. And then we came across more information as we went down those rabbit holes. And we found this out and we were just like, wow, okay. So this is very important to us to move into our next slide. The area that this case is from is in Nassau County, Long Island, New York, and Seaford, New York. So while the well-known film Poltergeist is based on this case, they pushed the idea of the home being built on Native American burial grounds as the reason for the paranormal activity within the movie. But there's no evidence of this in this area. This brings us to another issue in research. And that is that when there's cultural background and history mixed into a case, you've got to make sure that you search that part too and understand what is happening or what has been skewed or what is correct if you can. So this area, I have a map on screen, and this has the names of these Native American tribes, but this is also called the myth of the 13 tribes. And that is because most of the history has only been recorded and shared through white historians' narrative, and not indigenous peoples who live in this area or who may have lived in this area. Most specifically, the area that this case is in may have been home to the Matingcocks, the Rockaways, and the Merricks. Those 3 tribes, you can see them on the map. That's where Nassau County is a part of. But we wanted to just kind of touch on this too, is that, you know, with cultural history, you need to really delve into it a little bit more. And that way you can get away from that skewed hearsay. Folklore is great and stories are great to go off of, but you need to also respect that history that's there. All right.
Awesome. So we're going to start to show you some primary sources that we found using a variety of different sites, databases, and then we're going to demonstrate some of them. So here's a family photo of the Hermans. This is James and Lucille, the parents who named their children both after the children are also Jimmy and Lucille, which I love. It's giving like Lorelai, Rory Gilmore vibes, but like add a poltergeist to it. This is them from about 1958 when this case was happening. And this actually came from Long Island Pulse, the website of Long Island Pulse. It's just a digital magazine from that area. So it also goes to show you that, you know, you can use just general websites that you find if you feel confident that the things that they're putting up here are credible and actual.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Definitely. This is a picture of their home at the time, which also came from the same magazine that had the photo of the family. So this is the family residence in 1958. It's still wild to me that they just put the family's house on there, probably in a newspaper. But so we're going to use this to kind of show where we can kind of go with our research, modern day, present day, to know that we are researching the right residence. If you are researching a residence or a location, having these older photographs are very, very helpful in understanding like the layout of the land, the property, etc. So in 1958, this was the residence. And then now this is present day, the same house. You can tell from the front window, the front door placements and everything, but they have added onto the house. So, but we can see there, we have generally the same house. We know the kind of the layout of the land, and we can see the houses in the background are about the same as that was in the first photo too. So it kind of makes sure that you're making sure your information is correct as you're going through your investigation. Next, on that part of the research, you can verify even further by using property records to research the location that you're trying to investigate or build a case on. So I use the tax property assessors in Nassau County. I use their website, and they had archived records dating back to the original owners of the home of James and Lucille Herman. This was a very lucky find because it was not just on the front page of the search. It was up in like a little link drop down, and it actually said 2006. So you might think like, oh, that must be an archive record from somebody who bought the house in 2006. It was when it was put into the computer system. And I clicked on it, and here it was. This house, you can see their names, J.M. and L.T. Herman, up in the left corner of this record. 1953 construction. They bought the house for about $4,500 in 1953. I don't have on screen right now, but there was further information on another record card that had like the layout of the house and how big their property was and everything. But these are just very helpful to verify who is living there. You can compare them to census records and understand who was at the residence at the time, because I will say, nowadays, especially, you'll get a property ownership, but they may not live at that address. So you can compare it to census records if you're looking in past cases and see who maybe lived there. But if you need more up-to-date information, directories, your yellow pages, white pages are super helpful with that as well. And archives usually has those on kept in the archives to come look at as well. So,
and like you were saying the other day in our run through, Alicia, like some people might be wondering, like, why is this like tax? Like they might be wondering, like, how is this useful or whatever. But it shows you that they were the first, owners.
yes.
And that's just something that you can add as like an FYI in your, like, if the Hermans or something like had reached out to you and been like, we have some weird stuff going on, can you help us? It might be helpful to know that nobody lived in the house before them. You can do with that information what you will. I'm not saying that like a haunting always has to be because of previous people, but that's just an example of how it might be helpful. And also too, I sometimes love to just gather everything that I can and decide what is useful later.
Yes. Every piece of information you can gather is important. You may not use it right away, but it might come in handy later, and you can be like, oh, okay, light bulb moment with this thing. So yes. All right. A quick, did you know? You probably did not know, because we did not know until we were researching this case. The infamous Amityville house is only 5 miles away from the Seaford, Long Island home. So this is another part of keep the information that you find. As you research, it is always smart to research, maybe other cases in the area and kind of build off what's going on there, make connections. Is there coincidences within the cases? What can you deduce from other cases that help you here? And you may want to research this case later and, have that information there for you. Another point, as what Courtney said earlier, we found this out through a magazine. And then we were like, okay, let's make sure that this is correct and that this is true. And yes, it was true. I think the magazine actually said 7 miles away. No, it's 5 miles away. It was just kind of wild to find that out.
Yeah, that these like two houses are connected. Yeah.
Right?
So I love this slide mainly because Alicia put this like macabre little sort of like lollipop guy in the bottom. Like that, I don't know why, but it brings me so much joy.
I'm so happy.
I love it. Okay. So here are some ways that we started like digging into this case. I used the Chronicling America database to find this article from February 24th, 1958 from the Evening Star, which is a publication out of Washington, D.C. So again, just like a little caveat that there might be newspapers from other locations talking about certain events and so forth. Bouncing bottle mystery deepens in New York home. It just sort of goes on to tell you here, the James Herman family is back in their 6-room ranch home and the bouncing bottle mystery deepens. Like, it's just fun reading through this, right? Come on. I wish we could still open like newspapers, just like totally reputable, like normal newspapers, like as you're eating your breakfast and just be like, what's going on in the world today? Poltergeist. And
yeah. Right.
I want to
That'd be so great.
No. But it tells us like some of the hallmarks of what happened in great detail. During the president's last, when a porcelain man flew off the table and struck a secretary, like a secretary is a piece of furniture. As they were investigating the incident, a low rumble was heard and then a crash. And then also the dresser in young James's room had crashed to the floor. All of these things are happening, and actually, just a little aside, the family ends up contacting so many people about this. They contact local authorities, they contacted engineers at a nearby university, they contacted people from like weather and geological societies. They end up contacting parapsychologists from Duke University, which we're going to see in a minute. I mean, nobody could figure out what was happening.
All
right. So here's another example. I found this using the Historic New York Times. This is a database that you would probably have to access through your library. That could be your public library, or if you're a student or work at a university, your university library. But also, if it is a public, like a state university, you as a person living in an area or passing through an area can go use the resources at that academic library. I don't think a lot of people know that.
No.
But you can. So here is an article, Long Island poltergeist stumps Duke men. Experts report on Seaford incident is critical of family over lie test. And this article, which is just a tiny little snippet, talks about how a team of Duke University parapsychologists reported yesterday they were at a loss to explain. They studied 67 different disturbances that occurred between February 3rd and March 10th, attributing it to a poltergeist, but the scientists said the only explanation they found most difficult to rule out was psychokinesis, which the way that parapsychologists sometimes talk about poltergeist is by referring to it as psychokinesis. Specifically, they refer to it as this thing called RSPK, which is recurrent spontaneous psychokinesis. If you see that in the literature, they're talking about poltergeist. So yeah, this is just another example here, and I think we've got one on the next slide too. Yes, again, using the Historic New York Times. This is where we actually see, like Vanessa pointed out in our run through, they totally just dox the family.
Yeah.
The Herman House is a carefully kept, white trimmed green ranch model at 1648 Redwood Path. So you'll find this actually quite a lot in historic resources. I feel like it tends to stop happening about like the 70s or 80s, but especially in, resources from the 1800s, early 1900s, clearly up to the 1950s, the newspapers just put everything out there for you, which as a modern day researcher can sometimes be helpful, even if it actually caused like a ton, at the time, it caused a ton of stress for the Herman family, who eventually, by the way, the reason that they were not wanting to do like lie detectors or anything like that is because they were increasingly and very quickly concerned about the safety of their children.
Of course, yeah.
Because they, newspapers put their information out there, word was getting around, it was getting to be this really, really big case. And they were just like, look, this is getting too much for our children to handle. Unfortunately and anticlimactically, the way that this case ends is basically the parents are just like, we're drawing a boundary for the safety of our children. We don't want any more help. We'll deal with it and we'll figure it out.
Yeah. I can only imagine how that would have been to have like everybody just flocking to your house.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So this next piece of evidence or resource is just a little snippet in the Evening Star in the Washington, D.C. newspaper. So again, not even in the area. And it actually says right here that they were on a show called Person to Person, where they talked about their haunted home, and the family interviewed I forgot who is, Ed Murrow, I think, or something like that. Sorry. But they were interviewed about it, and this little snippet is just somewhere in the newspaper. It's not even on the front page or anything. So making sure that you check side columns. One of my favorite spaces to get information is gossip columns from old newspapers. Everybody was in your business. They knew what you were doing. They wrote about it in the newspaper. As I mentioned the other night, one of my favorite ones was watching this series of gossip columns once that I was reading. This woman was sick. She was sick. Oh, she passed away. And like, it was just, she's not coming to church this week. Oh, she's still sick. Her friends are visiting her. They knew what was going on. And they wrote it in the paper. If you were visiting town with friends, they said where you were staying, who you were visiting, all about your life, especially if you were highly social, in the town social crowd kind of thing. So definitely use your little snippets of information in newspapers. They are just as important as your front page headlines.
Absolutely. And if on a little more to add on this slide too, we think about like gossip columns and stuff like that today, like we would be like horrified, like it's like that's not respectful of people's privacy, but as you're being a researcher, it's such rich information to be able to dig into. And also you'll notice that on this page, like the words Herman and Seaford are highlighted in red. And that's because the database Chronicling America's Newspapers is identifying the keywords that I typed in the prompt. So this was not just you literally reading page to page of like this edition. That's why those things are highlighted, and we're going to talk about keywords in just a minute.
Yes.
And before we start this next slide, we have another question from chat, again from Jen. Is there one best way you have found to rule out inaccurate information?
I love that question. Okay. I will tell you a little secret. Okay. So, I like to tell people that basically, as long as you trust that something is credible, then go with it. And that might not seem like a clear-cut answer, but the thing is, research is not black and white. Okay. There are gray areas, but I'm going to tell you something that is sort of cheeky and fun and that I use in my library instruction sessions. You can just remember there's an acronym for you. At the end of the day, it's all CRAP.
Yes.
CRAAP. Okay,
Yes.
so currency, like when was it created? Is it a primary source, secondary source, whatever? Relevancy, is it actually talking about the thing that you're looking for? Accuracy, is it showing you maybe citations? Is it quoting people? Is it a primary source? If it's not a primary source, are they giving you citations of where they found their information? Authority, who wrote it? And then the last and probably the most important is purpose. Was it created to inform you about something? Was it created to sell you something? Was it created to get you to persuade you a certain way or stuff like that? So apply that CRAP test to whatever document it is that you are reading, and that is my best course of action to allow you as the informed researcher to determine if something sitting in front of you is credible or not.
Yeah.
I love
think
it.
you summed that out so perfectly.
And chat's going wild about crap. So well
Yeah.
done.
Crap is the most favorite thing in librarianship.
Crap happens. Yeah.
If you think librarians are serious people, throw that out the window.
Do you know how easy it is to get like freshmen to like remember that? Like if you just tell them to remember it's all crap.
Yeah.
And it's so easy. Like, okay. The classes that I teach at the university, that is, right? Like it gets a good chuckle out of people, especially freshmen who've never like been into the library before, and they're just sort of like, what's going on? But also too, honestly, if you get stuck and you're just not sure, reach out to somebody. You could reach out to like me, Alicia. You could reach out to your local library. You could,
Definitely.
hopefully that helps. And Alicia, did you have any thoughts on how to help determine if something's credible?
I think it all depends, like you said, like where your source is, like what is it, what kind of information is it spouting otherwise from what you're looking at? Does it feel credible, or do you feel kind of like iffy about it? One thing I like to do is like, with Wikipedia, we all know it's, crowdsourced information, but if there's information with resources, I go to the bottom of the page, look for what resources are posted, go to those. Sometimes they are very credible resources, and you can go there and start your own research from that too. But the CRAP acronym is the best possible way to really make sure that you're getting good information.
Yeah. And if you're ever not sure about a piece of information, see if you can find it duplicated elsewhere in resources that you are a little more comfortable about. I think like blogs are really great in terms of like, if somebody's outlining a personal paranormal experience that they had, that's one thing. You kind of just have to trust that like they're telling you something that happened to them. But also, if it's anything beyond that and they're not giving you citations or anything like that, or telling you where to find stuff, or you can't duplicate it anywhere else, like that's a good example of when I might just be like, I don't think
you're really gatekeeping that information and where they got it, then you can be like, oh, this is kind of, sus a little bit. So
there's no way to sort of verify. Yeah. So yeah. But it is, that's a great question. And it seems like a simple question, but it's not. It is at the crux of all research that you'll do.
Yes.
Like ever. Like how can I feel confident that this is credible?
For example, during my history seminar paper, I was doing research on tribes in Africa and their historical information. And I was asked the question of, how do I know that that is valid information? I have to trust that the historians before me wrote some valid information for me to go off of. So I have to, you kind of have to trust some of the information that you're getting and like the authority of who was writing it and why were they writing it. So yeah, you just have to kind of like look at what you're reading about and see what's there.
I think that some sources of information are easier to trust than others.
Definitely.
So like a scholarly journal is one that, as long as it's relevant to like your topic, you know, and it's published, I feel like you can feel pretty confident that it is treating that topic accurately and responsibly, because there is a series of measures that people have to go through, that I've gone through in a few articles that I've put in journals, where they are peer reviewed by other people who are also knowledgeable on that topic, who basically rip your paper apart and tell you the few things that they like and a whole bunch of things that they don't like, and then you go through this fact checking thing, and at the end of the process, when you're just about at your wit's end, they tell you, great, we like it, and then they publish it. So scholarly journals go through this peer review process in order to catch problems with you know, anything being like misconstrued or missing information, in order to help make that end product as accurate and as solid as it possibly can be. So like scholarly journal articles are like the ones that you might find indexed in IONS, the Institute of Noetic Science, or in the Journal of Scientific Exploration. You usually don't have to apply as much crap to that as everything else.
I'm so sorry. One last thing that you will appreciate here is if you find something about something, look at the bibliography. That is a great place to also get information, is check your bibliography. That's huge in the history world of you know, a historian's best friend is the bibliography of any book that they're reading. So
yeah. Oh my gosh, this reminds me of how like sometimes like if I go to like parties or like events, like, and somebody like starts asking about libraries, like whoever I'm with will just be like, Jesus Christ, like did you really have to ask her about libraries, because now she's never gonna shut up about it.
oh my gosh.
This is thankfully a safe space for any and all library talk.
Party, we would have like the coolest party ever.
I just like keep drinking. I'll get another beer and I'll be like, let me tell you another thing.
Right?
Yeah. Oh my God. And then people are just like, what? Okay. So what's happening? Okay, where are we? Keywords. So remember how I talked about in one of the previous slides, those there were certain words that were highlighted in red. That's because when you are engaging with a database, you want to use keywords. That's just because databases talk differently than what we are all used to typing in Google, which is like, where is the nearest place I can buy wine? Which might have been something that I Googled recently. So you type in like entire questions, right? In databases, you want to lower your searches to your like lowest common denominators, if you will, which is your keywords. So what I think is helpful is to do a keyword cloud activity. You can do a cloud kind of like what I'm doing here. You can make a list, basically just whatever way, if you want to write it on your computer, write it on paper, so you can get the keywords and affiliations out of your head onto a piece of paper, so that when you go to a database, you can look and see which combinations of words you want to make. And so this is just an example about the Herman family. I sort of put them in the middle. Herman obviously is a keyword. I'm also going to put poltergeist. I'm going to put the location Seaford, but I can also put Long Island. One thing I didn't put in here is New York. I could put all three of those as possible locations, right? Roll and Pratt, those are the last names of the Duke parapsychologists who studied them. So I put their names as keywords. I put psychokinesis, I put the acronym for RSVK and the spelled out version of that, because when you write down keywords, you always want to think of what is another way that I can say this thing, because the database might not be tagging it as RSPK, so it's not going to give you results because it's tagging it as recurrent spontaneous psychokinesis.
Yes. Okay. I think we are ready to share some actual real life investigations and showing how we actually use them in our search tools. So I'm going to stop share for a second, and then I'm going to share a different screen real quick.
Woohoo!
Ooh, okay. Let me go. This one.
I mean, that's research in action. It's just having open, what, like 100 tabs at any
Oh my
given
gosh, yeah.
moment. Yeah.
There's always a lot of tabs open. So, okay, can you see my screen right now?
Yes.
So I'm going to just use, I'm already on Google Chrome, but I just want to go to the search. So first I'm going to show how I use the tax assessor's property record search to find the information of the home in Seaford. And so I'm going to go to the county, Nassau County tax, assessor, and I need to make sure that I am in New York. So here we go. There's Nassau County ny.gov at the first one. I'm just going to make sure there's property assessment and land record lookup. That one's for Florida, I think. So I'm going to go to property assessment. And here I am, and it did not take me to there's lookup property assessment right here on this page. Sometimes it's called property record search. Sometimes it's just record search. Each county is different. Each state is different. So you want to at least get to where you can look up record search or property record search. So, of course.
Government websites. What?
Oh my gosh, right?
That never happened.
Land record search.
That's okay. This is what's going to happen to you when you research. So like,
right?
It's all, it's messy.
Here
Yes.
we go. Land records viewer. Yay. Okay, so we have lookup by address. Sometimes they also have lookup by name or owner. So if you are not lucky enough, like what we have is the information of the address shared in a newspaper, you can look up the name of the owner, like it's usually last name, or you can just look up the street that you believe it was on. So house number is 1648, Redwood Path. And I am going to put in Seaford and see what happens. And search. And it brought me right to the house. If you were to just put in the street name or the owner name, it's going to bring you up a record, like a page of records, and you can go through and see who owned it or what the address number is. So here is the house, here is the fair market value, all of the information like school districts, etc. So what I found, how I found their card was going up here to Property Cards Archive. There's only one there. I clicked on that. It's a PDF. And lo and behold, here is our information. The same card I showed you earlier. And then if I scroll down, you can see here is the square footage, the layout of the house generally, and somewhere in here is how much land that they had. And then beyond that, you can also go to your area maps or your tax maps. Here we go. It'll usually zone you in. It's called a parcel. One thing to note about land and record searches is that your lot numbers are not going to change, but your house numbers might change. Very rarely your roads change names, but it can happen. But here's the house, the layout now, and you can kind of deduce from the photo before, oh, here's a house that was in that back corner of the original photo, and here was another house that was in the original photo, and that kind of thing. So you can kind of get a feel of what the neighborhood looks like, what the property looks like, etc. So that is one of my favorite things to use is tax assessors, just to have the information. You can look this up on the house that you live in now or anything and kind of find the information there too. So next I'm going to look at digital public libraries. And I'm going to use the one from New York. So New York Public Library digital collections. I love digital public libraries so much. They have so many collections of things. You can see that there's photographs, different works, women of distinction, remarkable in works and invincible in, and you can go look at those. What we looked at the other day was directories. So here's James Madison papers, Thomas Jefferson papers. Like, this is a lot of history to take in.
There's the city directories.
Yeah. So city directories, let's go. I think we were on this green one.
City directories are so fun. Like, they can
They
help
are.
you like verify where like businesses used to be, where people used to live.
Yes.
Especially for really old, like in, you know, places that may or may not exist anymore. You can at least see where
Yes.
they used to be. And
So here's one from 1791. Let's look at it. Yeah, city directories help you know who had a business, where they lived, if they were married. We talked about the misogyny the other day. Women were put in parentheses if they were married to a man, and so, you know, Mrs. Dr. Clark or something like that. But you could tell also if people own businesses in their house, it would be like a laundry lady or apartment B or something like that. But there's a lot of information in these. This is how lucky that these are digitized. I don't know if it's my internet is going to respond right now, but these are digitized. You see, you can go through and look at the information that they have. This is so helpful if you're looking, you know, at old buildings, how long they've been around, who was there, etc. So New York Directory and Register for the year 1791. It tells you who wrote it. Let me see. There's the names. It goes in alphabetical order. Here is some of the, you know, unsavory parts. They were segregated, some, you know, up to a certain point, city directories. So you may have to look in different parts of the directory for different people and where they may have lived. So I also talked about the other night about something I misspoke. It's actually in city planners, not city directories, but city planners are going to have fee schedules. One that I was looking up recently was the history of epidemics and pandemics, and like during smallpox and Spanish flu and stuff, they would have said how much you had to pay if you were sick and you did not tell your doctor, if you did not post in front of your house that you were sick and this house had the virus or whatever was going on at the time. It would have had vaccination schedules, and you can find those in archives, and I think somewhat on these digital public libraries. So these are one of my favorite resources for sure, especially newspaper research. You can do that here too. So the last thing I'm going to share before I hand it to Courtney is going to be Google Scholar. And this is where we were talking earlier. Sometimes Google gets put down for like what, you know, as a search engine or database, but Google Scholar is such a best friend, especially if you can't access it, something through like JSTOR. Most of JSTOR I think is accessible, but sometimes there's a paywall through, you have to have a university or something, but go to Google Scholar and look for it there. So what I'm going to do is use the keywords that Courtney talked about earlier to look for information about the Herman case. So if we did Herman, I'm going to use Boolean terms this time. This is and or not just kind of narrows down your search terms for you. So I'm going to do Herman and poltergeist and Seaford. So that's, I'm just using 3 keywords here. So we're going to see what we get. So right away we have information, you can see up here where you read my participation with Pratt in the Seaford poltergeist. So that means it looks like this is an article by J.B. Ryan right there. So you have information right there, and that's through Google Books. You can access it. The C for disturbances is next on the list of information. Sorry, my browser is going behind the controls up
This
here.
is an amazing article, but it's wild, you guys. It just, don't mean to interrupt, but
No, you're fine.
I've read this article. It is wild.
Awesome. So yeah, see, this article you can access in your research right here. You can get some sort of information from Google Scholar. So don't put it out as like, oh, it's not verifiable, or there's some, you want to use like these fancy databases. You don't have to. You can use Google Scholar to your advantage. It's something that is free and available, and I feel like very, very trustworthy in research. So, all right, I'm going to stop my screen sharing and hand it to Courtney
Cool.
for her to share some of these.
Thanks. And just a note on Google Scholar, it's sort of like an indexer, like it helped you find that book about poltergeist disturbances. It helped us find a scholarly article. And also, if you are affiliated with a university, like if you're a student or you work there, you can link your credentials, your university credentials within Google Scholar, so that it will automatically give you the full text of things that you might have access to through your library. And like, also, it's kind of creeping me out that like they turn the lights off, like,
Oh.
but like I saw them go off a second ago, and I was like, the library's open for like 3 more hours. Like,
I told you you're going to be trapped there for.
Again, Mercury in retrograde's going hard this time.
Seriously, this week I know everybody has felt some sort of chaos, and it's just been a lot.
yeah, like that's what Alicia, I was like messaging Alicia, I was like, don't panic. Last night I was like, don't panic, don't worry. But my whole hotel just lost power. And she was like, North Carolina, it just doesn't want to let you go.
No.
It's true.
Duke is gonna trap her there. And
You have to do work in the parapsychology archives. Like
it's
that's
telling
just
her, right.
I need to I'll just walk in there to the library and I'll just be like, look, this thing happened. These people, they don't want to let me go. Okay.
Yeah.
I need a job. I had this exceptional human experience in
There
my
you
hotel
go.
the other day. And anyways, yeah.
Seriously. Oh, I think you found your other calling.
How
Right.
great would that be? Okay. So I am going to share my screen, and the first thing that I'm going to show you guys, can you guys see my screen?
yes.
Wonderful. I'm going to show you Chronicling America newspapers. So just go to Google, just Google it. And it's the first thing that comes up here, Chronicling America from the Library of Congress. This is what it looks like. I mean, just right away, it's just already, I love everything about it. But you can see here that we have a very basic search up here. It defaults to searching all states from 1777 to 1963. And then you can go in here and enter your search words. So let's see what happens if we do Lizzie Borden, to take it away from the Hermans for just a second.
Yeah.
You'll notice that I typed Lizzie Borden in quotations. That's just a little strategy, a little librarian's tip and trick. If you have a keyword, a person's name, a phrase that's more than one word, if you embed it in quotations, you're telling the database to keep these words together. Like, give me the phrase Lizzie Borden. Don't give me Lizzie at the top of the article and Borden somewhere far away.
Yes.
So
That drives me crazy when that happens.
I know. And some databases are better than others, but it's a good rule of thumb to put them in quotations if you can. Okay. So then you just hit go, and I didn't do anything other than just type in Lizzie Borden. I didn't play around with the dates or anything. And right away we see, remember how that one slide we had showed the words highlighted in red? This is what it's going to look like. It's going to show you literally where on the pages these come up. And so I'm just going to click on this first one, and we can see here that it is from the Delaware City Press, April 25th, 1913. So it's quite a few years, you know, after the event, but we have this article here that's talking about Lizzie Borden. Let me scroll up a little bit. Condemned by public opinion, woman once accused of crime is shunned by her neighbors, subtitled Lizzie Borden's Lonely Life. With a little illustration, a hand-drawn illustration here, the porch of Lizzie Borden's house and her auto. So it's just, I mean, the things that you can find in here are just, I don't know, they're just.
I gotta say, doxing without photographs too. Like doxing through drawings, just fantastic.
Another thing that you can do is let's get rid of that one. Let's do something a little different. Let's play around with our dates. We know that happened like around 1890 something, 1890 something. I don't know. Let's just do 1891 and we're gonna limit it to 1896. You don't have to be exact. This just helps us limit it from, you know, 200 some odd years to 5 years. And so what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna do Borden, and I'm gonna do this. This might look a little crazy, but I just want to give you guys some little tips and tricks. And since this is going to be saved, you can come back to this. I'm going to connect the keyword Borden. I'm going to say, and I want you to connect it with murder or trial. But because I've embedded murder or trial into parentheses like that, essentially what I'm doing is just, I'm doing two searches in one. So the database Chronicling American Newspapers is going to do two searches at once. It's going to give me everything that has Borden and murder, and it's going to give me everything that has Borden and trial. And all that does is saves me time from having to do this, hit enter, go through everything, do this, hit enter, and go through everything. So you can combine things, just embed the things in parentheses. Okay, so let's hit go. And now we've got different 167 some odd results about, oh, look, here's one from Asheville. That's kind of cool. Chapel Hill, 10 minutes,
Right.
10 minutes or so down the road there. Borden murder trial, 2 days, sensational testimony. Lizzie Borden's contradictory answers to women acquaintances, very little blood found on her clothing nor on the axes. Ooh, okay, so this is a primary source, like written at the time. And you can see here, I mean, look, this was publicized. This sort of gets at the question somebody asked earlier about like international scope. I know this is still, you know, related to here in the US, but this was written about everywhere. Like this was written about in North Carolina. Okay, this happened in Massachusetts and they're writing about it in North Carolina. So another thing that you can do is you can limit it to the state if you just want to, you know, do it that way. You can go into advanced search if you get, once you get a little more comfortable with the database. So what do we want to go to next? Let's go to, oh, I love HathiTrust.
Yeah.
So we're just going to go there. HathiTrust is so freaking fun. Okay, you do not have to log in. There's a big red login button. You don't have to, but you can if you are affiliated with a university or a college, because it might find even more results for you, but you don't have to. So let's do the Society for Psychical Research. And let's go ahead and put it in quotations, just in case. The Society for Psychical Research was founded in the United Kingdom in 1882 by a group of folks who were interested in digging into this notion of survival after death. Anyways, HathiTrust is where you can find literally, look at this first one, Journal of the Society for Psychical Research. So you can find their journal entries. This is from 1906. And we can see here, it tries to take you to like the beginning pages here, like the title content pages. But yeah, we get information about like who's on the society, notes about their meetings and so forth. Let's just kind of scroll down and see what we get. There's just all sorts of case records that you can find in here about things that they investigated. Lots of administrative notes and so forth. Oh, here we go. Cases. You just kind of have to scroll through. Over here on the left-hand side where it says search in this text, if there's a particular word or person you're interested in, you can type that in there. But you can just find stuff like this, like the following case was received from Professor Alexander, who sent us the depositions of the witnesses in the original Portuguese. So here's like where I'm talking about HathiTrust can also be good for international stuff. Yeah, 3 different recipients who had impressions relating to the illness and death of Edgardo Japert. Oh, I already just want to like sit here and like read this.
I know this looks like really interesting already. I want to go.
And like, look, this was, you know, sent like 1902. I mean, like you can just go so far back. I just like more than 100 years ago and just reading. By this mail, I send on the evidence for a case of double telepathy. Oh my gosh, just like you guys, just like a rainy night, get you a glass of wine, like some sparkling water, like tea, and just sit down and just go to HathiTrust and just you know, just go to town. It's so fun. What else do I want to show you? The last one that I'm going to show you is I'm going to show you the DOAJ. Which is the Directory of Open Access Journals. So this could be another one that could help you find information on an international perspective, because there's 130 countries represented in here. Switch it over here to articles. That's one thing. It doesn't default to the articles, which is kind of weird. But anyways, let's just do psychokinesis. Just keep it simple. Keep it, you know, just hit search. And we've got 42 different articles of somehow relating to psychokinesis. So here's one from the Journal of Scientific Exploration, the methodology for conducting macro psychokinesis. Okay. Examining implicit beliefs. This is a very sort of statistical, you know, clinical sort of one. That's okay. How smokers change their world and how the world responds, testing the oscillatory nature of micropsychonetic observer effect. This is just wild, the stuff that you find in here. Here's a cool one from the Journal of Scientific Exploration. Again, the Stargate Archives, reports of the U.S. government-sponsored PSI program.
Hey, yeah.
Transpersonal experiences, that sounds amazing. Development and phenomena of a circle for physical mediumship. That's seances. They're talking about seances in a scientific way here. The other great thing that I will say about journal articles is that you do not have to have advanced degrees to read these articles and understand them. You might not, even I do not understand like every single word that's going to be in some of these technical jargon-filled articles, but you'll understand enough. You can read the abstract, you can read the summaries that they have at the end. You will understand what's going on. I'm so sorry. That's like so annoying, like to sneeze. But another thing that I really love about scholarly articles is that they often include a section, if they're doing some sort of study, some sort of experiment, they're going to lay out a very detailed methodology section. So you can get inspiration on how to maybe take this weird, like scientific experiment about something, you know, paranormal and do it yourself. So you can get inspiration from these articles.
Yes. I think that's so amazing that they share all of that information.
All right, so we have a question in chat from CJ. Do you know of any good sources for researching Native American ancestry?
Okay, so if you don't mind if I can talk about this one.
Please.
Definitely wherever whatever Native American tribe that you're searching for, reach out to their nation if you can, if they still have like my husband is Chickasaw, they have Chickasaw Nation, and we can reach out to them to start some sort of information research, or they have resources on their website. If there is not a resource information like that, then go to or reach out to the archives that the tribe originally came from. So a lot of times, like especially I'm in Georgia, North Georgia is where Cherokee Nation is, and they have a lot of resources up there, but also our state archives has a lot of information too. They have booklets, they have maps, so much information. Archives is definitely somewhere that you want to reach out to first, or even a library in the area. They might have books related to that Native American tribe, or anything that happened historically in the area, and they can start you on like a good path of researching it. So I really think reaching out to the tribe first, if you can, is the first thing I would do. So do you have anything to add, Courtney?
No, that was great. I was just gonna say, remember to check out the archives and the libraries, public libraries, and also the university libraries that are in that geographic area.
That's true. Yeah, that too. So sorry, just last screen I'm sharing is where to find us at. So I forgot to mention earlier, I'm the co-creator of Tidy Tarot Co. and Tidy Tarot Tarot Journals. You can find me on Instagram at tidytarot.com or Tidy Tarot Co. or I'm on Twitter always talking about weird stuff at Historic Alley.
I have one of Alicia's journals that she made. They're amazing. They've helped me like learn more about tarot. I've also gifted them to people. And just a plug, they're amazing. I'm also gonna, you can find me, I'm mostly active on Instagram, but I'm also, on Twitter. It's just sometimes Twitter kind of scares me and I don't know why, but anyways, you can find me at those handles on those places. These are the 2 books that I've written. You can ask your libraries to get them for you. They will basically, the rule of thumb pretty much for all the libraries that I've worked at, all the libraries that like I use just as a patron, is if you want something and they don't have it, they have request links like on their website, or you can just tell them in person or an email like, hey, I want to get this book, and they'll get it for you. And then you can save your money. But I'm also going to put a link, maybe one of the moderators can help put that in the chat for folks. And basically, you can also get my books. Sorry, I put the wrong code here. Let me switch that in the chat here. You can get my books from my publisher, Rowman, ROWMAN.com. And I have a discount code of 30% off. Insider tip here, get the ebooks, because I think it takes both of these books down to like $35, $38. And save you quite a bit of money. But also, like I said, ask your library to get you a copy, because they will. And then you save your money. And especially like in this inflated time, anything you can do to save money. But that's just a little plug for my books and for libraries.
I wanted to mention too, if you like us talking about this stuff, we are going to start doing more Instagram lives, talking about cases and researching them together. And we have a lot of projects that we're working on together that are coming up in the next year or so, but definitely follow us on Instagram if you want to see kind of more of this kind of talk, and paranormal definitely integrated into that talk. So
I love it. I love it. Thank you. And also, if you have a copy of the book, ask for it at your library too, because that means that other people can read it. At least for my local library, there was just there's a link where you can recommend books that you want to see for their collection. You write you write information about the book. I wrote a little paragraph about why it was important and why Evanston needed it, and they approved it right away. And they put it on my my watch list essentially when it came in, so I could take it out of the
I
library right
love
away.
that.
So yeah, and then it's in the collection for other people to share,
Yeah.
and you still get credit for having sold a copy. It's in a library. It's so libraries are a good resource. I also have these journals. They are decked out with my stickers, but that's my sticker magic process. So I recommend those too.
Oh my God.
Shameless plug, I just released the Rune journal version of, so Teddy Tarot has tarot daily journals. So like if anyone in the chat or watching this is ADHD and you're like, you don't remember everything that you of tarot, especially I created it for myself because I just couldn't remember everything, and I need to write it down or I will not remember. So that's why I created these in the first place, was for myself. And then I decided to put them out there. But there's tarot, there's crystals if you use it in your divination at all. There's also a spell journal or grimoire where you can keep any spells that you do or any rituals that you do. And then I just released the Rune journal. I did some research with Pagan from Pagan's Witchy Corner, and she helped me out so much. And I read a lot of books, and I put it into a journal stance of, if you use runes or you have never used it, it's something that you can at least journal your interpretations of the runes and then your spreads basically. So that's something really fun that I had never used before, and now I'm gonna start incorporating it into my practices too. So
I love that. That's so cool.
Is there any questions that people have? I would love to answer anything. I know Courtney would too.
I mean, right now it's just a lot of thank yous and a lot of love for this presentation and for your work.
We threw a lot at you. Another reason that we both are just like, just keep it up. Just keep it up.
Keep it up forever.
Yeah. Go back
I'm
to
gonna stop sharing my screen right now, but I guess too, is there anybody that has like a question they need help learning where to start researching? I know that can open a can of worms, but if we can like give some information,
Right.
Well,
I want to throw this out for Alicia real quick, though, not to make more work for you, but the people in the chat want a Let's Ghost graphic. They love the little ghost. They need we're not saying ghost hunting.
I will do that.
But you need to, the people want it. So
Yeah, I can do that. I
Give
make
the people
stickers,
what they
and
want.
so I'm sorry, Mara, I didn't hear what you said.
Oh, I was saying we have to give the people what they want.
Oh, definitely.
Exactly. Jess has probably the most important question of the day. How are you both so cute?
Oh my god.
No, you are. Oh, thank you.
I am not this dressed up.
I have sneakers on because all of my other, like my fancy shoes that I was gonna wear, like are totally soaked because the hurricane, like the winds and the rain. But oh my gosh, it is
This week. I swear. I want to put this week.
So I have a question. Do you have a research project that I don't want to spoil anything for your future series, so it could just be a little personal rabbit hole you went down, but is there something that got you really excited recently?
Oh my, I'm like researching so many things at one time.
I mean, that's the ADHD too, right?
Yes. Oh my goodness. I don't have one that's popping up off the top of my head. I mean, I work in archives, so like every day is different. There's always something different that we're researching every day. And then you get really excited when you find like a census record That's like, yeah, this is, this is something, I can talk from personal experience, I guess, of something that I'm constantly researching is, I know I mention on Twitter all the time, as I live right next to a cemetery, and I've been researching it for years, and I finally got to go over into it because they cleared a lot of stuff out. And so these families that I've been researching for so long, I got to see their headstones and, that kind of stuff, and really connect to them a little bit more. But I have names, and I have, I've been able to look up death certificates and stuff like that based off of these names that I have from headstones, and I have the list of names from the archives, and kind of connect it to the some things that we have happen around my house. Weird stuff happens here, and I'm not saying that all cemeteries are haunted at all. So, but living next to one, you get some activity. So sometimes I try to use that as information of like, maybe I should, maybe that's their name, and I should reach out to them if that's who I'm seeing.
Of course.
Yeah,
Of
so
course.
that's something I always am working on, is trying to give them a voice and remembering that they are human, or they were human, and that I want to bring as much respect as possible to them, even if they're scaring me sometimes. But yeah.
Of course.
I love how you put that, Alicia, is like you're humanizing like that experience, right? And like recognizing that these like were people, and it kind of it makes it's the same way that I feel the stuff that I am sort of digging into at the moment to answer that question, which is such a fun question. The reason that I came to the Duke University Parapsychology Labs is because I wanted to find out more about the life of this librarian and parapsychological researcher, Rhea White, who was prominent from like the 50s through the 70s primarily. And I wanted to learn more about her. And I found like all of these letters, like these personal letters that she had written, and they were just like beautiful and just like gut-wrenching, and tells you so much more about a person than just like being familiar with the work that they do.
Yeah.
And then I wanted to also learn more about Louisa Rhine, because I was really interested in the history of like these women in the field of parapsychology, especially these sort of earlier years. And so being able to like hold Louisa Rhine's journals from like the 1910s and 20s and 30s and 40s, and it's just, I don't know. I just am struck at to me, sort of like philosophically, everything is kind of like a ghostly experience, but like in that moment, like connecting with the words of this person who has been dead for some time from like the 1930s is like just an echo sort of, going forward in time. And what is that if it's not a ghost, and however you want to dress that up. But it's also just like made me sort of think, like I said at the very beginning of this, like how I just think like I just want to urge everybody, like if you're so inclined to like physically write things or documents, and if you're also so inclined to leave them with family after you're gone, or even in archives or something, because it's just being able to connect and empathize and sympathize and feel very similar to both of these women and the things that they were writing in their journals is just not even something I can like put into words.
Archives, like it gives you such a different feeling being able to connect to those things when you're holding it in your hand and you're seeing this thing that somebody did 100 years ago, say, and now you're the one holding it and you're reading it and you're seeing what they saw, and it gives it such a different connection, because you think those things, what's it going to be like, what will they have left of me, what will I leave behind that somebody else will read and see what our life was like, I can go down this rabbit hole to talk on this, but it's so important. I feel like to like what Courtney is doing, go see those things safely if you can. I know we're still going through COVID and everything, but if you can safely go see those things, it's worth the trip to go hold those items, to see them, to read them, and experience them in a way that is, you definitely feel more connected for sure.
I love that. I love that. So we have a question from CJ again. What about the secret romance hidden among the Duke archives?
Courtney.
Oh gosh. Okay. Okay.
This is so fascinating.
I know. I'm gonna try to. Oh my gosh. Okay. I feel like so like protective of this like story. So I'm gonna try to be cognizant of like that. But yeah, when I was digging through the letters of Rita Wright, I discovered, and these things are in the archives. I mean, it's not a closed collection. If they approve you as a researcher, then you make an appointment and go in and look at these things. I found these letters that she had written to another parapsychological researcher that she worked very closely with, this other woman, and they were these beautiful love letters. And I was like, what am I reading? And just to see, like, to read that and to read like this, like the connection that, I mean, it was just one-sided because I didn't see the responses. I didn't see like the other letters or whatever, but to see like and read and sort of experience like Rhea going through all of these emotions and like the trajectory with this other person, I was just like trying not to just like weep like abjectly at the archives table. I was just like, oh my God. Like I just wanted to stand up and just be like, you guys have to hear, like the other researchers do. You guys have to hear what I'm reading, because I mean, it was the 1950s. I mean, and to read like these love letters between, these two women, like that felt a certain way, but then it also felt a certain way because they were both like, sort of pioneering parapsychological research, in a very male dominated field. And so that felt a certain way. And I was just like, I don't even know what to do with myself after like just the act of being able to read those. I think that's what I mean when I say like I feel very protective of those, because it's such a privilege to be. That's another thing that like archives kind of makes you feel like it's such a privilege to be able to peek into someone's personal life that way. Yeah, so that is a little bit about the sort of the romance that I had uncovered in the and then of course when I was digging into the journals and the letters of Louisa Rhine, I got to read about the trajectory of her romance with her husband, Joseph Banks Rhine, who she just called Banks, which I think is so cute. So I got to read about the trajectory of her life. And this was in the 1920s. They got married, I believe, in 1920, I think. And her letters were also poignant in a way because she was very independent. And she wrote very often about how she doesn't, need a husband, and just all of the like feeling a great sort of love for her independence and an appreciation for that, but also sort of falling madly in love with Banks. And I don't know, it was just beautiful.
I love it.
I love it too. I want to read these.
Yeah.
And that too, like in undergrad, I took an archaeology class, and the professor had actually gotten some artifacts from a university, I want to say in Australia, that went belly up, and they were auctioning off their pieces to apparently to other museums, and also just like itinerant archaeologists. And so he had some ancient Mesopotamian pieces. And one that I remember is just this little clay figure, a seated, abstract woman, like a hands under her breasts, and like this tiny little piece. And to look at it and you think somebody actually made this with their hands 6,000 plus years ago. And I get to hold this now, wearing gloves, obviously. But that there's something about that archival, the actual pieces that connects you with a real person was behind that.
Yeah. It's definitely a very specific feeling that you get when you get to hold these things or read them.
Yes.
That makes me think of the Ria did some studies with children and school children and extrasensory perception. That was a big sort of part of her research portfolio. And she did that with this, other researcher that she writes about. And before I had discovered the letters, and even like, I didn't really know much of anything about Ria before I went down. I knew about her work, and I knew that she was a librarian, and I just wanted to know more about her, and I definitely got what I came for. But in the stack of information about her, there were also the cards themselves, the ESP cards, the Zener cards that they used, her and her fellow researcher used in the studies with children. And I handled those before I found Ria's letters. And I think I might have texted this to you, Alicia, that they had such warm energy.
Yeah.
Like when I held them, they were just so warm. Like I just remember a sense of just like, it was just so cozy and warm. And then I find these letters and I'm just like, oh my God.
It kind of almost feels like you were meant to find the letters, meant to find the information, because how many other people have been through these things, researching, a lot of times people put off like letters and stuff to the side, like, oh, it's just, transference kind of like stuff. They're just talking about, whatever, but really it's like these really deep connected things in their personal lives. And I think it's wonderful that you were the one that was able to read these and, kind of get a story out of all of this beyond what you went for.
Yeah, it's just another reason that like archives are so important and can be really meaningful. And I mean, obviously they ended up there because somebody who was in ownership of the letters, okayed them to be sent into this collection.
True. Yeah.
But I mean, there's a process for things ending up in archives.
There is.
Sometimes things get stolen too, and that's a whole nother issue.
Yeah.
In archives, but yeah, it's just really cool. I just encourage anybody who's curious to go visit in archives, because also too they're so advanced like nowadays. Like they have these amazing high-tech scanners that you can scan, to get like digital images of all sorts of things, like these journals and just,
Also, same point as archives and libraries, they need your usership, you to go use them in order to continue existing. They count on people coming in and showing that people came in and that they used their services, because they're not usually revenue centers. So they need you to come visit. They need you to use them so that they can show, the next year, hey, we're still here. Like we exist and people like us, and that kind of thing. So use your libraries. They're there. Your archives are usually a entity of your government or city or county government or state government, so definitely use them.
I love that. Great. I'm waiting for more questions from chat. So I'm curious too, is there, because I know I have them, do you have like a research project or a couple where you just can't crack it? Like you've tried multiple avenues and you still can't get the thing that you're really looking for?
Oh man. I mean, there's been some that I've done that took so long to research. It's mostly of like names, the name changed. They're not the same name as what was on the census record, as what was recorded in the newspaper. So and so they moved states. So now you're chasing them state to state or even a different country. There's, here's one thing too, as much as people were reported in gossip columns, people could go start new lives very simply. Just have a brand new name, and then you kind of have to like track of like, okay, well, they said they came from here, so what happened to them? Like, were they actually here? Is anybody by that name here? So you run into those a lot with archives and just researching different things, because we have people come in all the time asking information about their families and their genealogy mostly, and so sometimes it's really hard to track people down. Sometimes people are in prison. You have to look there too, and
Sure.
cold hard truth.
Yeah.
One of those things. So, Courtney, what about you?
Yeah, your question, Vanessa, made me think about some like personal genealogy stuff that I've been doing. There were these sisters on my mom's side of the family. I think they would technically be like some sort of cousin to me, who lived not too far away from where I live. And I think only one of them actually married. The others all remained unmarried and independent. I think two of them actually went and became nuns, and the others just, lived together or lived independently. And this would have been in the late 1800s, early 1900s. And so that just fascinates me. Like, who were these women? And I have some of their personal artifacts, their photos, and their reading glasses. And I have been trying to just dig out more and more information about them, but I think I have ferreted out as much as I can, unfortunately, because I don't think there are any, because of the time period, I don't think there are any sisters at the convent who remember them.
Of course,
I think the last one who would have actually like recently died. So I think I've gotten everything that I'm going to get on them, but that's okay. And that's one of those things that we talked about earlier. Like, sometimes you just get where you're going to get, and
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's it. Yeah. Anytime you're dealing with a historical record, it's always going to be incomplete. Like, you can hope for the best, but you have to make do sometimes with what you can find, what's available, what wasn't destroyed in a fire or a flood or something like that.
Too. Yeah, you lose a lot of information sometimes if natural tragedies happen and there's no backups. Then you just lose stuff, and there's not always stuff that can be done.
Right.
So that's the hard part.
Of course.
Yeah.
Well, especially when you love information and you just want more of it, and you're like, but where is it? I know it was somewhere at some point.
That's how we end up being awake at 4 a.m. down multiple rabbit holes of 60 tabs open and being like, it was here and here and here.
Of course.
Like, imagine the red string on the bulletin board.
it's like that meme of like Charlie Day.
Yeah.
Really good.
Okay, and like
That is what it feels like.
Oh my god. Basically, researching is like you're solving a mystery all the time. You start with a little information, and then it just keeps getting bigger. So
yeah,
it's a lot of fun. I love it, at least.
That's why, I mean, it's important to, like we talked about on that slide, diversify your toolkit and the resources that you go to and the places that you consult and the people that you consult, because information is just all over the place.
Yeah.
Which is, it's morally neutral, but it can be like frustrating, right?
Yes.
Of course. Well, again, when you have an ADHD brain that's dopamine seeking, you're like, but I need the answer.
So true. And then also, oh, that looks interesting. I'm gonna
Yeah, that's shiny. This is where I'm going now.
You'd be like, oh, what was I doing? And then go back.
Oh, yes.
And 2
Oh,
hours later, you're like, wait, where did I start? It was
Oh,
somewhere else.
Oh,
yes.
yeah. Oh, yes, yes. Is there any other questions that anybody has for us, or?
I'm not seeing
That's okay.
anything. I mean,
This has been so fun.
anybody
I-
cheat with us while they can.
of course.
You can always reach out to, like, I see people on Twitter all the time talking about, I'm researching my family history. So I'll be like, I'll look at some stuff for you. Like, why not? You know?
Yeah, Alicia's really good at like the genealogy side of
Thank you.
stuff.
Thank you. So I love it. I'll go down a rabbit hole. See what's up.
That's the thing too, and especially when you're dealing with people who are passionate about something, it's like, oh yeah, I'll drop everything and do this.
Like, I'm not gonna watch TV tonight. I will go on a database hunt and like,
I do, because that sounds fun and exciting for me, because that's
Yeah.
also the type of person I am.
Yes, yes.
And then even more if it's paranormal and you're like having a rough time finding stuff, like, let's do it.